Did you ever look up on the computer and do research on psychopaths?
Yeah.
Why did you do that?
What are you reporting?
Double homicide?
An elderly couple asleep in their beds was stabbed to death.
It was the most horrific, depraved murder I've ever seen.
Why did you do that?
If you get up close to him, you can see his eye twitching.
I want to kill people, but I don't want to want that. I wish it wasn't that way.
There's really no empathy there.
And I guess I've just been afraid to actually face that.
Those things just don't disappear.
This deep, dark desire for murder and gore and bloodshed, and it doesn't go away. It just doesn't.
She peered through the bungalow's window. Husband Chip Northup, 87, and wife Claudia Maupin, 76, were in a quiet slumber, laying in their bed in a pool of their own blood. What many would call a quiet, safe California college town had become the backdrop to a horrific elderly homicide. Chip's daughter Mary was worried when the couple didn't show up to church on Sunday, April 15th, 2013, and decided to give Claudia a call. It immediately went to voicemail. Mary called her brother Robert to go check on their house, but there was no answer at the door. "We rang the doorbell and no one answered," Robert said in an interview. "Everything I saw indicated they were out of town." But Claudia's stepdaughter, Laura, knew in her heart that something was wrong. After ringing the doorbell to no avail, Laura went around back to look into the window. That was when she saw the bloodstains and slashed window screen. Police were called immediately. Claudia's daughter, Victoria Hurd, woke up to 12 missed calls and learned that her parents' bodies were found. All the police would tell the family was that there were multiple stab wounds. Later, Police Lieutenant Paul Doroshoff revealed that Chip's body was punctured with knife wounds a total of 61 times, and Claudia's 67. In Chip's stomach lay a drinking glass, and in Claudia's abdomen was a cell phone. This was no ordinary break-in. Nothing was missing, ruling out a robbery, but the police were struggling to find a motivation. Eyes turned to family members who had access to house keys, specifically Chip's grandson Oliver, who was schizophrenic, and his twin brother Tony. Despite each member of the family being called individually, the close proximity to the twins' home made them prime suspects. When the house they shared with their father, Robert, was raided, the police found the recently steamed carpet suspicious. Upon further investigation, more evidence pointed toward the family. Robert had the carpet cleaned the same weekend of the murder. What was found in Tony's bedroom caused alarm. A drawing of a man holding a knife, standing over two children in a bed. As a result of the investigation, the family gathered thousands of dollars to hire an attorney for Tony, who is now the prime suspect, and to fix the damage caused by investigators when carpet and plumbing was removed. The real damage was to Tony, however, who was eventually found innocent. The repercussions were so bad that he ended up taking his own life 3 years later. His twin brother Oliver has a tattoo in his memory. Without fingerprints or DNA to go by, to find the culprits for Chip and Claudia's deaths, the police were stumped. 2 months later, a 911 operator received a call. 911 operator, Davis Police Emergency. Caller, oh yeah, can this be anonymous? 911 operator, what are you reporting? Caller, double homicide? The reason I want to remain anonymous is because if my mom finds out, she will send me to military school. Officer, what are you calling to report, sir? Caller, the double homicide that happened in April this year. Corporal Allen, what can you tell me about that? Caller, everything actually. Claudia Maupin had moved to Davis back in 1995, one of the safest cities in California. Deciding to attend a Unitarian church, She would spend her Sundays worshiping and volunteering as a pastoral associate. Claudia Maupin met her third husband, Chip Northup, and they hit it off almost immediately. They were the perfect couple, according to her daughter Victoria, and their families easily blended, something Claudia was good at. She brought people together. Claudia had that ability to make every person that she spent time with feel that special, so that they would come away and say, "She's my best friend." Chip's daughter Mary said in an interview, Chip was a World War II veteran, attorney, and a member of a local folk band that would practice every Sunday. He was also the founding member of their church. They were happily married for 17 years before the devastating night. Who did it then? Corporal Allen, who picked up the 911 call, asked Alvaro Garibay. Daniel Marsh. Daniel Marsh? Yeah, Daniel Marsh, or Dan Marsh. Daniel Marsh was known as a young hero who saved his father's life. He had received the Red Cross Heroes Award for using CPR to save his father, who had a heart attack while driving, all at the tender age of 12. Alvaro revealed that Daniel, now age 15, talked a lot about killing, but he didn't think his friend was being serious. Alvaro also knew a lot of grisly details about the crime, including the experiments on the bodies. The odd details that hadn't been shared with the public were things that Daniel happily bragged about to his friend. Alvaro had previously walked in on Daniel watching gory videos. Fascinated, Daniel had tried to get Alvaro to join in on watching them too. When investigators pressed him to find out why he took so long to tell anyone, Alvaro explained that he was scared of endangering himself, his family, or his friends. Once investigators got all they could out of Alvaro, they knew it was time to contact Daniel Marsh. On July 17, 2013, Special Agent Chris Campion asked the high school resource officer to bring in Daniel for questioning. "What do you know?" "I know that somebody broke into this old couple's house and killed them," he replied. For 3 hours, Daniel told Special Agent Campion about his life. Daniel considered himself an outcast after his mother left his father for his kindergarten teacher. He was extremely angry at the teacher and wanted to hurt her. Instead, he would take the anger out on himself. Over the years, Daniel developed an ED and ended up in the clinic for 25 days. According to his school counselor, he had told them about his morbid fantasies and was hospitalized again. After 38 more minutes of questioning, Special Agent Campion asked the real question that was on his mind. "Why the heck would you just sit there and bold-faced lie to me?" "'Cause I am. You guys are threatening me with With what? The truth? Getting arrested for 2 murders. I'm so scared right now. Of course I'm gonna do anything I can to try and say I didn't do this." This was what made Daniel finally talk. The senior couple weren't even his primary target. On the night of April 14th, Daniel stalked the community when he came across their bedroom window. He cut a hole into the screen and climbed in. He nervously stood over their bed, watching them sleep for a while before he pounced. To confuse investigators, he placed the cup and phone inside his victims. To conceal his identity, he wore a ski mask and gloves, and had taped the bottom of his shoes to prevent footprints. To commemorate his victory, he kept the knife as a souvenir. Daniel treated the grisly event as an accomplishment. His grades went up, and he was even named Student of the Month at school. It was pure happiness, and adrenaline and dopamine, just all of it rushing over me. And when asked how he would be able to hurt Special Agent Campion, Daniel replied, "Just a lot of ways. Nothing personal." It was nothing personal for him because Daniel had thoughts of carnage with almost everyone he met. It was a full year after the murder when Daniel was put on trial. The defense was set on pleading insanity, claiming that his anorexia and self-destructive tendencies were a clear sign, arguing that his antidepressants fueled his psychotic thoughts. Deputy D.A. Amanda Zambor disagreed, arguing that Daniel was having thoughts of destruction before he was put on his medication Zoloft. Dr. Matthew Soulier, who was hired by the defense, considered Daniel mentally ill, but not insane. He was still responsible for his crimes as he actively knew what he was doing. On September 26, 2014, under just 2 hours, the jury deemed Daniel sane and guilty of first-degree murder. He was charged as an adult, sentenced to life in prison. "We can sleep again," Victoria Heard, the victim's daughter, exclaimed outside the courtroom. "We are so relieved. We got justice. I feel like we had a really good victory today." But it wasn't long before a new law was in place that would change the face of juvenile justice. In September 2018, California Governor Jerry Brown signed a new law known as SB 1391, which made it impossible to ever try a 15-year-old as an adult in the state of California. This brought the Daniel Marsh case into question. Daniel's defense attorney, Jeff Rezig, vowed to fight for his charge as a juvenile. This meant the possibility of the grieving family having to face Daniel every 2 years until he turned 25. In October 2018, a 2-week court hearing began to decide if Daniel should continue being tried as an adult or be tried as a juvenile. Dr. Jonathan Yip, the Associate Director of Mental Health and Treatment for the Division of Juvenile Justice within the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, explained the interdisciplinary approach and individual treatment plans to rehabilitate each juvenile would go through. The main focus was on giving the youth a better understanding of their trauma and what triggers their destructive behavior. When questioned about Daniel's particular situation, Dr. Yip testified that to keep an offender under the age of 25 in custody, a mental health evaluation must be performed by a licensed psychiatrist or psychologist, and if the criteria isn't met, they would be jailed for another 2 years until their next evaluation. Daniel's lawyers were determined to defend him and ensure Daniel was under the juvenile law, despite the reluctance of the victims' families. Defense attorney Andrea Pellicino said she believed the court would be overwhelmed by the changes he has made in a very short amount of time. Despite being one of the people Daniel initially threatened, psychiatrist Dr. Matthew Soulier was part of the defense. After spending 4 years behind bars, he mentioned that there were distinct differences in his maturity, his empathy, his insight into himself, his sense of responsibility. But Dr. Matthew Logan, a forensic psychologist, begged to differ. He believed it was more likely than not that Daniel would be fatally destructive again if given the chance, after the results of his psychopathy test, a 35.8 score out of 40. For context, anyone with a score over 30 is considered a psychopath. Some of the traits are glib, superficial charm, pathological lying, lack of responsibility, inability to feel remorse. Judge Samuel McAdams' final verdict was that Daniel still posed a threat to society and would be put behind bars. He said that Daniel has not made any meaningful progress on addressing the triggers of childhood and incident trauma that pose a risk to society. As recently as August 18, 2021, Daniel Marsh was on trial again, continuing his fight to be tried as a juvenile. On September 8th, the Davis Court denied an appeal for early release. The Yolo County District Attorney's Office explained, "We never believed the change in the law prohibiting persons under the age of 16 from being tried as adults applied to Marsh. As satisfied as we are about this ruling, we are equally relieved for the survivors who have to keep reliving this tragedy in each ongoing court proceeding." For more twisted stories, don't forget to subscribe.